Today we're talking about JavaScript functions versus C# functions. And in both cases you have to declare the function and then call the function. A function in effect is like a mini program that just does one thing and allows you to break the program up into a lot of mini programs and organize a structure. So if something goes wrong, you know to look for that specific part that does that specific thing. On JavaScript, the way you declare the function is you just say the word function and then the name of the function, and then you put two parentheses, and then you put a curly brace, which is the start of the body, and an end curly brace that's the end of the body of the function. And what the function actually does is within the body. Then to call the function, you simply say the name of the function with the parentheses and a semicolon, of course, to be a correctly formed JavaScript statement. In C# it's much the same thing. One difference you notice, instead of having just a generic word function, you always have a return value for the function. And if you're not returning any value, you have the keyword void. And then once again you have the name of the function, you have parentheses, and then you have the curly braces defining the body of the function. Start curly brace, and then whatever the function does is within these curly braces and an end curly brace. And then in order to call the function or invoke the function, you just say the function's name, the parentheses, and possibly something inside the parentheses. I'll talk about it in a minute. And then a semicolon. So very similar. And you notice the differences are really based on the fact that JavaScript is weakly typed and C is strongly typed. So you don't have to say what the function returns in JavaScript, because it could return anything, and it doesn't need to be specified as a type because any type is treated the same. Alright, let's try running this in JavaScript. To run and launch in Google Chrome, and you see it pops up a message box with the alert statement that says this is a message. And let's do the same with C#. And the reason this is going to run in C# is I put the call to show message inside the form load event handler. And this runs before the form actually loads. So you'll actually see this message box before the form comes up. So if we compile and run this, see, here's the message box. This is a message. I click OK, and now the form appears. The next thing I wanted to talk about is returning values. I actually don't think we'll have time to get to the last thing, passing arguments to function parameters, so I'll cover that in the next tutorial. But in terms of returning values, within the JavaScript you notice I have a global variable defined with var outside num, and then I have a function defined in JavaScript with just the function keyword, and then I have a local variable defined of num, and I say var num equals 3, which means a local variable that's only accessible within the function is now set equal to 3. So I say return num. So the value of this function actually becomes 3. I look down at the outside code. I say outside num, the global variable, is equal to get number. So now we're assigning the value of get number to outside num, and the value of get number is 3. So outside num should be equal to 3. And then I just have an alert that pops up a message box to say what that number is. So if we run this in Google Chrome, you see we get the JavaScript alert of return number is 3, just as predicted. The C# equivalent looks pretty similar, and once again the main differences are because of C# being strongly typed and JavaScript being weakly typed. So our outside number in C# is int with a name of outside num. It has to have this strong type of int. And then we go down to the function. Once again we have a local variable called int that's the named num, and that's assigned to 3, and it would only be accessible within this function. And then we say return, the same keyword, return num. So the local variable becomes the value of this function. And then within the form load event handler, we're saying outside num, the global variable, is equal to get number, the function, which now has the value of 3 because it has a return of 3. And once again I have a message box that just says the return number is, and I concatenate it with outside num dot toString, and I have to use the toString function because C# is strongly typed and you can't just print out an integer, you need to convert it to a string. And one thing you should notice also is there's a concatenation operator of strings, and in C# it's a plus, and in JavaScript it's also a plus, so that once again is another similarity. So let's try running this, compiling and running it. And you see the message box comes up, return number is 3. It actually comes up before the form loads because it's in the form load event handler. I click OK, and now the form load comes up. Well, I'll finish discussing JavaScript functions versus C# functions in the next tutorial, where we'll talk about passing arguments to the functions. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and don't forget to subscribe.